Controversy regarding student visas has hit SJSU. More on that up next.
Once known as a wartime legislation, now being used as a deportation standard. Find out more coming up.
Calling 911 might earn you a fee. Stay tuned to find out why.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at San Jose State University, your source for what's happening with a fresh perspective on today's issues. You're watching Update News.
Welcome to Update News. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Larry Larkin. The Trump administration has been revoking student visas across the country, and earlier this week, the South Bay was hit hard. Several international students at San Jose State had their visas revoked. Madison Wilbur is live to tell us how the action has shaken the campus.
Here's what we know. The Trump administration revoked the visas of 13 students starting Tuesday. They were F1 visas, which allow non-immigrants to study as full-time students. No reason was given, and by the next day, there was outrage. Nearly 40 protesters gathered at the Cesar Chavez Monument at SJSU with the hope that the president and the university were listening. They wrote letters to the SJSU president, Cynthia Teniente Matson, expressing their uproar.
They might argue there's only so much they can do as a single school against the federal government, but their voice carries weight. There's things that they can do locally, and, we have concrete actions and concrete demands that they can meet.
The university president released a statement saying, "We are actively monitoring the situation and ensuring that students and recent graduates who have been impacted are receiving appropriate individual support and guidance, including connections to legal resources." Among the protesters, there was anger.
I think it's a pretty blatant effort to attempt to silence student activists.
Fear.
It could mean the end of the country as I know it. That's what I'm terrified of.
And a call to action.
If you're thinking, oh, well, this doesn't concern me, I can just stay in my lane, stick to my life goals and be fine, it's only a matter of time. Things are only going to get worse and worse, and it's only a matter of time before this administration comes for you, whether it's indirectly or directly. So get organized and act now.
I have copies of some of the letters here to the university president. This one says, "Tell ICE to back off." Another one asking, "Will you stand with us?" And one ending with the notion to simply do better. Students called on the university to condemn the Trump administration's actions and to alert the campus if ICE is president. We'll continue to bring you updates. Live in San Jose, this is Madison Wilbur, Update News.
Of all the executive orders President Trump has issued since taking office, the one regarding elections hits hard in California, especially in Santa Clara County. President Trump wants to block all ballots that arrive by mail after Election Day. As Angela Newman reports, California voters are ready to fight, but there not be many options.
Here at the Santa Clara County Register of Voters, 3 out of every 4 ballots are mailed in. For decades, they have accepted mail-in ballots as long as they are postmarked by Election Day. If the president's order goes into effect, this could take away one of the most convenient ways to vote.
The executive order, titled Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections, criticizes mail-in ballots, saying many American elections now feature mass voting by mail, with many officials accepting ballots without postmarks or those well received after Election Day. Among other directives, Trump plans to require all voters to show proof of citizenship to register to vote.
From voting by mail to same-day voter registration, California has worked for years to make voting more accessible. Academics we've spoken to believe that Trump's executive order will challenge states' jurisdiction.
California Secretary of State Shirley Weber fired back, saying, "This is a calculated and dramatic assault on every American's right to vote, and I will do all in my power to ensure that all eligible Californians can freely and securely participate in our democracy." Lourdes Medina from Siren, an immigrants' right group, says they plan to fight back by helping their clients stay informed on where to find legal resources and support.
Our focus has definitely been and has always been to offer asylum support, refugee support, and for those who have a status in this country.
Matt Morales with Santa Clara Register of Voters believes that eliminating postmarked ballots is ineffective.
I think it removes a safeguard that's in place that prevents hundreds, if not thousands, of ballots from being inadvertently rejected just based off of mail delays.
SJSU student Chima Nicolo is concerned about the president's far-reaching power.
It's very scary that the President of the United States is being able to dictate how American citizens should be able to vote.
In San Jose, Angela Nguyen, Update News.
Hundreds of migrants in the United States were deported to El Salvador in March. They were sent without warning and without due process. Reporter Vincent Rupena spoke to members of the Japanese American community to connect their history to today.
It was like a nightmare come true.
For Susan Hayase,
it's a terrible violation of rights, human rights and civil rights.
And Tom Izu.
Japanese Americans have always wanted to stop a recurrence of what happened to our people.
President Donald Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelan migrants contains a painful echo of their parents' experience during the Second World War.
My mom spent her entire high school career in Poston concentration camp.
In the aftermath of the 1942 attack on Pearl Harbor, President Franklin Roosevelt invoked the Alien Enemies Act to forcibly relocate over 100,000 Japanese Americans from the western United States. Entire communities were uprooted, and families, effectively, imprisoned for the duration of the war.
There was a lot of pressure on people not to speak Japanese and not to be Japanese, right? To pretend that you weren't.
Izu says he hoped these efforts would prevent the country from repeating the mistakes of the past and spare others the injustice of how the Japanese were treated during the war.
We've been telling people that you need to learn about what happened to Japanese Americans during the mass incarceration during World War II so that you can be clear and capable of seeing when things like this happen again and you can do something about it.
Tom says there was not much vocal opposition to the mistreatment of Japanese Americans while it was happening. But a generation later, he says his community is not afraid to give voice to its outrage over the use of a law they considered wrong then and now.
If they think what happened to Japanese Americans is wrong, then they should think all of this is extremely bad and wrong.
In San Jose, Vincent Rapena, Update News.
The Alien Enemies Act, used just 4 times now in more than 200 years, and never without controversy. We continue our team coverage as I explore this seldom used law through the lens of history, politics, and our legal system. Our country was still in its infancy when Congress passed the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. John Adams was president, and we were warring, if not officially at war, with France. The gray area, not entirely unlike today, says Kevin Johnson, a law professor at UC Davis.
But when you're not in a war and you're kind of conjuring one up, it raises all kinds of red flags about, well, are we abandoning our basic constitutional rights? And what limits are there on the invocation of this kind of extraordinary power?
The law gives the president broad powers to arrest, detain, and deport so-called alien enemies during a time of war. But critics warn, depriving people of due process sets a dangerous precedent.
I'm scared of racial profiling or just being out in the street and somebody thinking that I'm part of that group and something happening to me or my family.
The law was last used to imprison more than 120,000 Japanese Americans during the Second World War. The Trump administration has resurrected the law to deport several dozen men who allegedly belonged to a Venezuelan gang.
I think it's very important to have due process. The fact of the matter is, this country has laws and we should live by them. But those laws can't be ignored either, just because you think somebody committed a crime. This is not what this country stands for. And I'm hoping that in the end, our principles will stand up and be heard.
Even with concerns from both sides of the aisle, President Trump has remained steadfast in his use of this wartime law. As this act continues to be used against immigrants, questions will continue to remain about the lengths this administration will go to fight immigration.
A dramatic change is coming for anyone calling 911 for medical help in San Jose. The San Jose Fire Department is set to begin charging patients a fee for responding to their medical calls. Mohammed Najimi has more.
SJFD answered tens of thousands of medical calls last year, all for free, and they say that's unsustainable. Working families are worried that this will make it even harder to make ends meet. Last year, San Jose firefighters responded to more than 68,000 calls for medical service. After years of footing the bill, the city will begin charging $427 to the patient's auto or health insurance company. If you don't have insurance, the bill goes to you. You could get the fee waived or reduced if you qualify under the Compassionate Billing Program. The city expects to collect at least $4 million a year. Neighbor Cynthia Montiel says it will likely add even more financial strain on needy families.
I'm thinking more for those that have those struggles, right, that currently don't work or, like I said, aren't covered by an insurance. So I think it's going to be a huge burden on just the low-income people.
San Jose is already one of the most expensive places to live in the country. For Fabiola Bataz, it's been especially hard with her 15-year-old son Alex, who has epilepsy. Last year, he had 4 seizures.
But we always need the 911 because they're the ones who tell us, okay, administrate it. You know, ambulance are about 2 minutes away. You know, they're reassuring that everything's going to be fine.
Latino Family Fund Board Secretary Veronica Guzman says the fees could put yet another financial burden on struggling families.
I understand that there needs to be a cost, but I wish it would have done more research about it and implement a different way.
As for Bataz, she'll be thinking twice before calling 911 and might just put Alex in the car and drive to the ER herself.
We have enough to get by, we have enough to survive, but honestly, with the economy just going up, when it comes to the rents, the bills, now this going up too, it's going to be a hardship for some of us. I mean, for me, it will be.
Currently, 23 other fire departments across California charge a first responder fee. The change is going to affect January 1st, 2026. In San Jose, Mohammed Najimi, Update News.
We'll have more for you when we come back.
Stricter requirements could lead to less street vendors in San Jose. Find out what those requirements are up next.
A new executive order is raising concerns for workers at SJSU. We'll explain what's at stake coming up.
Want to find out if this week's weather will bring you April showers or the springtime sun? Stay tuned for our 7-day forecast.
Buses and trains are running again in the South Bay after a tumultuous strike that brought the county's public transportation system to a standstill for nearly 2 weeks. Reporter Abel Tariku caught up with several members of the campus community who rely heavily on public transit.
And you know, when it stopped running, it kicked my butt, man.
Draconis Thomas relies on VTA buses for his commute to work and is relieved that the transit system is back on track.
I had to get off at Berryessa, walk for, how long was it, 3 miles?
An estimated 100,000 people ride VTA buses and trains every day, according to VTA Open Data. And like Tay-O, people had to find other ways to get around during the strike.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're back because this is like my main source of transportation and all. And I know for a lot of students also the same.
A judge ordered striking workers to return to work on March 26, effectively ending the 17-day strike. However, the transit agency and its union employees have not yet agreed to a new contract.
Many people are glad to be back to work because they went through almost 3 weeks without a paycheck, regular paycheck. You know, this is their livelihood. This is what they do. But many people are dedicated to their jobs here.
The two sides remain far apart, but for riders at least, there is comfort in knowing that a strike that fueled frustration and inconvenience is for now at an end.
Things people rely on, you know, but you know, you can't rely on the branch you're standing on. You got to rely on your wings.
The two sides have not been back at the bargaining table since the judge ruled the order, and they are still pretty far apart. The union wants the 18% increase in salary across 3 years. VTA offered 11% and says it can't go any higher without having to cut services and jobs. In San Jose, Abel Tariku, Update News.
If you've been to a sports game or special event in San Jose in recent months, you know it's become a problem. Illegal street vendors crowding the sidewalk, selling food and souvenirs. Now, the city is setting stricter rules. Yuvia Limon has more.
The new changes allow San Jose police to impound any illegal street vendors' equipment and food. Thank you. It is a firm message to come to the permit office in City Hall, get a license, and follow the rules. For years, they have become a regular sight spread out across the city. Vendors making a living from selling fruit, lunch, sweet treats, and other goods. However, recent incidents in downtown San Jose where vendors jam-packed public events like Christmas in the Park have resulted in the current crackdown. Officers have now expanded authority to impound goods and equipment to declutter walkways.
I see them as essential people to our society. Of course, we need to make sure it's regulated. We need to make sure food that's being sold is safe.
To streamline the permit process, the city has removed the insurance requirement. Now, vendors only need to sign an agreement freeing the city from any potential legal harm. In statement, the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs says the city encourages unpermitted people to get the necessary permits so these vendors can continue to make a living and contribute to a vibrant and thriving downtown and city. Angie Pimento thinks her fellow vendors will still struggle to get a permit and follow the law.
Most of vendors I know, myself personally as well, I know it's something that it's not easy for them to go out and do.
Angie Guevara says vendors can save themselves further stress and heartache. It's not that difficult to get a permit. People should do it so when police arrive, they don't have to have no other option but to take it away. Councilmember Peter Ortiz says the city wants to work with vendors, many of whom are undocumented, to strike a balance between boosting public safety and promoting entrepreneurship.
During a time where our federal government is coming after our undocumented community, we need to be sensitive to their needs and their concerns here in the city.
In San Jose, Yuvi Limon, Update News.
Many college students work several jobs to pay their bills just to get here on campus. Most of us have also studied the history and value of having collective bargaining in the workplace. I went out earlier this week and found one of President Trump's many executive orders that could eventually have a direct effect on some key faculty with financial challenges of their own. Andrew DeLunas is a San Jose State University lecturer. He says to make ends meet financially, he has to teach at 5 local colleges. That's because technically DeLunas is hired as a part-time or adjunct instructor. He was not hired as a full-time faculty job where professor salaries can be negotiated based on career experience.
I've found a way, through teaching as much as I do, to make the money that they do. The difference is, whereas they teach 2 classes a semester to make that kind of wage, I have to teach between 10 and 12 to make that wage.
The California Faculty Association represents roughly 29,000 members statewide, including nearly 1,100 part-time adjuncts. The CFA warned on April 1st about the dangers President Trump's executive order, which called for eliminating collective bargaining. The website Indeed reports the average salary of a part-time adjunct at San Jose State is nearly $46,000 a year. We were not able to confirm this with the CFA. Even though President Trump's executive order only applies to the federal workforce, the CFA felt the need to weigh in on this.
It has to do with union solidarity. The members of the unions affected in the federal workforce have a right to collective bargaining.
The Freedom Foundation, a think tank, has fought against collective bargaining. Update News reached out to the Freedom Foundation but got no response. In their press release on March 31st, it said, President Trump's executive order marks a bold attempt to redefine the relationship between federal employees and their unions by removing the ability of unions to dictate terms on workplace policies, which will give agencies the autonomy they need to function more effectively, especially during times of national crisis. Update News wanted to know what function more effectively means to the Freedom Foundation. Teachers like Andrew DeLunas may wonder if that ultimately means any part-time faculty member could suddenly be expendable to save money.
The reason I do this is because lecturer faculty get paid minimum wage in the or at least in most areas in the United States. We get paid slightly more than minimum wage here in California.
In his executive order, Mr. Trump cited a 1978 law that granted presidents the authority to end collective bargaining within the federal unions because of their role in safeguarding national security. We'll be keeping watch on how this story unfolds.
Almost daily stories now about the ups and downs in the stock market triggered by the President Trump's tariffs have set off shockwaves nationwide. Some people locally, including retired employees of San Jose State, who rely on stocks and investments like 401k retirement plans, are nervously keeping a very close eye on their portfolios. Update News' Sophie Cipriano has looked into why some are worried and have lots of questions.
Khalid Nasser owned a liquor store for 37 years and decided it was finally time to turn a new page in his life and retired a year and a half ago. He says President Donald Trump's new international trade tariffs on many countries are now messing with his plans to live off his stock market investments.
It does, yes. It is swinging dramatically, and it's not a good thing now for the short term. Hopefully it's going to recover, but yeah, it does. Yeah.
Nasser is upset because at least 10% tariffs on all imported goods from countries went into effect this week. Trump used the 1977 International Emergency Economic Power Act, which allows the president to regulate economic transactions during a national emergency. The question is, what is the current emergency? Federal courts will likely be asked soon if he can do this.
Liberation Day, as Trump is calling it, has sparked nationwide pushback.
401ks, which are employer-sponsored retirement programs, are tied with the stock market, and employees may get some stocks as part of their plan. Angel Rodriguez is a day trader who spends much of his time investing in the stock market. He's concerned that the possibility of retirement may be slipping out of some people's hands.
And due to the fact that we've already experienced almost a 25% decline in the majority of the market, that future may not look like it could be a possibility.
Other local experts, like Justin Rates, are concerned prices on many things consumers buy could soon increase.
So what I think is a high possibility with tariffs is that it could cause a recession in the second half of this year.
Retired SJSU anthropology lecturer Jonathan Karp worked for SJSU for 33 years. He now works with CSU retirees as the California Faculty Association retirement specialist and tells me that faculty pension plans that are managed through CalPERS are what thousands of former California State University educators are now counting on.
And so they are much more vulnerable to the erratic behavior of Trump than we are in the CSU because we have a defined benefit pension through CalPERS.
With the turbulent changes in tariffs from Trump, the stock market and retirement plans may be uncertain. In San Jose, Sophie Cipriano, Update News.
Hey Larry, it's been really warm these past few days.
Yes, not only has it been warm, it's also been sunny. And now we have Sophie Cipriano in this week's weather forecast.
Hi, I'm Sophie Cipriano, and this is your weekly weather forecast. This week, we're enjoying some more spring-like weather with warm temps and rain chances largely staying north of the Bay Area. There will be some cooling at times as these storms bring some clouds to the region, followed by some warming in the long-range forecast. Our futurecast shows showers mainly staying north of the Bay Area, although we can expect mostly clouds to overcast conditions at times. Overall, temperatures will be in the 70s around the valleys with 60s and low 70s around the coast and Inner Bay. The 7-day forecast for Santa Cruz is a mix of coastal low clouds and some sunshine. Some spotty drizzle may be possible at night into early morning, with Wednesday having a high of 70 and Saturday and Monday low of 65. Oakland will see some warm temps at times with a mix of clouds and onshore winds that will likely lead to late night and early morning low clouds and some drizzle at times over the weekend. San Francisco should see mostly mild temps with areas of late afternoon low clouds with patchy fog and some drizzles possibly overnight. San Francisco's weekend temperatures will be staying in the 60s. San Jose will see some warm temps and mainly dry conditions through the 7-day forecast, with the whole week temperature staying in the 70s range. I'm Sophie Cipriano, and that's your weekly Update News forecast. Now back to the desk.
Stay tuned because we have more for you after the break.
Your pets could be in danger, and out of all places, it's their food. Find out more up next.
One of education's most valuable assets might have fallen to just the baseline. Stay tuned to find out why.
Women's empowerment is at the forefront of this sports bar. More on that coming up next.
First, it was the nation's supply of eggs. Now, bird flu is hitting pet food. Traces of the disease have been found in cat food across the country. Ivan Reno has more on the recall.
So far, the FDA has recalled products from at least 2 companies, Savage Pet and Wild Coast Raw, that shipped across the country. Both recalls involve chicken meat.
Relying on reputable resources is very important when it comes to deciding whether or not to, I guess, buy that food or support companies.
This year, there have been 21 cases of cat infected with bird flu so far. No human cases have been reported, but the FDA says you can get sick if you touch contaminated cat food and then your eyes, nose, or mouth.
Doing our research as owners, like what pet food has the contamination of that for our cats. And I think also being maybe more restrictions on what is available and put into our cat foods, being more aware of that as well.
The source of contamination is unclear. However, cats are more likely to hunt birds, targeting weak and sick ones as easy prey. That's why Anna Cruz keeps her cat from going outside.
I believe cats should stay mainly indoors. We do have a little porch area where my cat can roam around a bit, but I try not to keep him, any further than that. He's not really around any like birds or anything like that. So I'm a really big advocate on keeping cats indoors.
If your cat has symptoms, including red eye, breathing problems, and seizures, call your veterinarian. In San Jose, I'm Moreno, Update News.
College students spend years studying to get their diploma, but life after graduation can often be a bumpy ride. And that starts with their search for their first job. Reporter Justin Ray has more on the story.
From excitement?
I felt good. I felt like I did the thing. It's time to go into the real world and do something even better.
To anxiety.
I've applied to over 300 jobs, and most of the people who respond to me are scams.
Alexis Marquez thought that a college degree would be the key to unlocking her future. But almost 6 months after graduating from San Jose State with a bachelor's degree in advertising, she is struggling to find work. The doors of opportunity shut tight.
It's been really hard. I think the job market is worse than I expected.
And Alexis is not alone. According to a survey released in February by the National Association of College and Employers, less than 60% of college grads in 2023 found a full-time job within 6 months of graduation. And while it's easier than ever to apply for jobs online, the competition is fierce and standing out from the crowd is a challenge.
When I started, you have to send resumes to people and go around. Today, you just click a button. So these companies are getting far, far more applicants.
Bernick also says that networking and face-to-face interactions can give job seekers an edge. And that's where a resource like SJSU's Career Center comes in.
We do a college to career boot camp for students who are still looking to find that first opportunity. We understand that not everybody gets to do their job search while they're still a student.
The Career Center provides services to students up to a full year after they graduate. Alexis says that she has invested years of time, energy, and money earning her degree and hopes that it pays off soon.
The most motivating factor is just like trying to find that next step in your life to be able to be happy.
Well, Alexis is well aware that graduating in the winter semester provides her a sort of head start on other graduates. She is just as aware that in just a few weeks, she will be joined by tens of thousands of new graduates and job seekers, all competing in an increasingly tight job market. In San Jose, I'm Justin Ray, Update News.
According to ESPN, an estimated 9.8 million people tuned into this year's NCAA championship game between UConn and UCLA in the women's bracket. That's the third most watched NCAA women's championship game ever. As women's sports gains momentum, reporter Isabella Dandoy takes us to a new San Francisco bar that plans on keeping the celebration alive.
Billie Jean King, to local legend Brandi Chastain, Simone, Serena, and the Caitlin Clark effect. These moments in women's sports history have become a movement.
Every step that women's sports takes, I feel like there's a moment, there's like a pause where you could be like, is it going to work? Like, is this going to break it? But it's not. It's like here to stay. The momentum's here. The fans are here. The talented athletes are here.
Danielle Tho and Sarah Yurgovich are hoping to capitalize on the growing enthusiasm surrounding women's sports. They're getting ready to open Ricky's, the Bay Area's newest women's sports bar in the Castro district. Ricky's aims to uplift women's sports and the fans who support them.
Anybody who's a fan of women's sports is welcome at Ricky's.
Ricky's is yet to open their doors to the public, but their watch parties, like this one at Teeth, are already drawing fans in.
We've been trying to watch the games and asking
bars to put on the women's games because they don't actually have them on. And so coming to a place like that is going to be surrounded with women and women's sports was really important to be in that community.
Kinesiology professor Shirley Reiki notes that mainstream media now treats women's sports as a permanent fixture in the sports landscape.
Media didn't want to cover it because they thought nobody would watch it. But the players thought, well, how can we ever get people to know about it if the media doesn't cover it? And that's finally begun to happen.
With the lively crowd behind me, places like these show just how far women's sports has come and where they may be headed next. In San Francisco, I'm Isabella Danburn. Update News.
It's estimated 84% of the world's population identifies with a religious group. Recently, our Gabriel Evans reported on campus Muslims observing Ramadan. Today, he looks ahead to next week, when two other major faith celebrations annually coincide in America.
April 12th is the start of the solemn observance of Passover for Jews worldwide. And this weekend, Palm Sunday, for Christians begins Holy Week, culminating with Good Friday and Easter. It's a profound and sacred time for people of both faiths. But young members from each community tell us there are shifting perspectives and thoughts about their respective religions. Unlike their relatives, they say many nowadays are encouraged to rethink their religious standpoints.
When I think about like my church and stuff, and like everyone in my youth group, they're all in high school, and growing up we're always like, it's always like, oh, go to God, talk to God. And it was to the point where it was just like, people kept on telling us that, like my parents and stuff, to the point where it was like, nah, I'm not gonna listen. Like it was just like, I don't want to listen to that. Like it just came to a point where it's like, it felt empty.
Yet, a Pew Research Center study suggests 44% of college graduates still consider religion very important, while 25% say it's somewhat important in their own lives. Early in life, traditional family and cultural expectations once played a major role. Over time, those obligations shifted to family choice, a reason why now many college students elect to leave religion altogether.
Well, I think a lot of people become religious because of their parents, right? So when they're younger, they're kind of forced to participate or believe in those things, and kind of as they get older, they start to think for themselves and they start to come to their own conclusions. But I also think that at that age group, there are a lot of worldly things that kind of vie for their attention.
Some students in the campus Jewish community tell us their faith foundation has had an impact in different ways in their college education.
But have definitely taken a step back, both as like my own personal relationship with religion has been fraught, and like the war in Palestine, and just also like it doesn't have the same relevance in my life as it once did.
Yet, leaders in both the Christian and Jewish faith communities on the San Jose State campus say that students will still observe Passover and Holy Week observances, either because of familial tradition or because they say students genuinely still derive strength from those ceremonies. In San Jose, Gabriel Evans, Update News.
And that does it for this week's edition of Update News.
That's all for us here. Thank you for joining us, and see you next week.